The kitchen smells like lard and burnt coffee. Jacob Moore folds yesterday's paper and watches his wife stir the pot. Lorna clucks her tongue, loud enough for the girl to hear. "She eats more than a team of oxen," she says. Elsie sits by the window with her mending kit, round face flushed under the lamplight, needle going in and out with patient rhythm. She says nothing. She has learned that silence is safer than defending herself. Jacob taps the newsprint. Pike Ranch needs a stable hand. Harlan Pike's hiring. We should send her. His mouth curls. Let the old bull figure out what to do with a fat girl. Lorna laughs. Perfect. She will last an hour. Then she'll come home crying and stop dreaming she's useful. Elsie lifts her eyes. If there is work, I can do it. At dawn, they hand her a scrap of directions and a tough heel of bread. No wagon, no ride. She walks. The road is red dust and heat mirage. A hawk hangs over the flats. Her boots rub blisters before the first mile. She keeps going anyway. She carries her mother's faded scarf in her pocket. It warms her like a promise. The wind whistles through sage and wire fence. The sun climbs. The valley opens. A crooked gate appears with a brand burned into the plank. Pike Ranch. Harlan Pike steps from the barn like a shadow pulled from the door. He is tall and unshaven. His eyes look like nails driven too deep. His dog, a scarred blue heeler, gives one bark and settles. Harlan squints at the girl. You lost? Elsie swallows. Sir, I was told you needed someone to clean the stalls. Her voice is small but steady. Sweat beads on her brow. Mud freckles her hems. I can work. Who told you that? My brother, Jacob Moore. Harlan snorts. Figures. He thinks a joke is a plan. He studies her hands. They are raw from walking, but strong. He turns toward the barn. One day, he says. No promises after sundown. East stalls, water troughs, tack room floor. If you quit, you walk back. I won't quit. He nods like it is nothing. To her, it is everything. She finds a broom with half its bristles gone, a shovel heavy as iron sin, a dented bucket. The ammonia bite of manure burns her nose. Flies thrum. A mare stamps. She ties back her sleeves and starts. Scrape. Lift. Haul. She learns the angles of the shovel and the rhythm of breath. She sets her jaw and moves the filth like a river of defeat she refuses to drown in. By noon, her back screams. By mid-afternoon, her palms are torn. She keeps moving. At dusk, the dog pads over and drops a stick at her feet. She laughs once, surprised by it. Harlan appears with a tin cup of water. Most men last half a day, he says. You lasted the whole thing. She drinks. It tastes like mercy. She sleeps in the loft on old canvas, bruised and grateful. Dawn finds her on the yard before the rooster. She sweeps the tack room, oils a cracked bridle, and stacks feed bags in a neat wall. Harlan pretends not to notice, but he leaves a short list on a barrel. Feed Rusty early. Check gate latch 3. Good work yesterday. She feels the words like coins in her palm. In town, someone starts a story. By evening, everyone repeats it. The Mad Pike hired the fat girl. He keeps her in the barn. They laugh into their glasses. Lorna laughs loudest. Jacob tells the bartender he did Redhaven a favor. Back at the ranch, a skittish mare refuses the halter. Elsie moves slow, voice soft. Easy, girl. I know how it feels when hands come fast. The mare lowers her head. Harlan watches from the door. You handle them better than I do, he says. Animals don't sneer, she answers. They share a small smile, awkward and warm. That night she cooks beans and skillet bread. He eats without comment until the last bite. You didn't have to, he says. You looked hungry, she says. The wind rattles the eaves. Somewhere a coyote yips. He clears his throat. You can stay in the loft again. For now. She nods. For now is more than she had yesterday. The whispers grow teeth. At the mercantile, 2 girls titter behind flour sacks. She thinks he'll marry her, one says. He'll tire of the cow, says the other. Elsie buys coffee and a mending needle and walks out with her chin level. Her cheeks burn, but her steps do not falter. 2 days later, a wagon rattles up the lane. Jacob and Lorna climb down in their Sunday scowls. Lorna smooths a skirt that has never known a day's sweat. We have come to get you, Elsie, she says brightly. People are talking. You are embarrassing the family. Jacob adds, Pike, send her out. You've had your fun. Harlan wipes his hands on a rag and leans on the gate. You sent her as a joke, he says. She worked. She stays if she wants. Elsie looks at the yard she has made tidy, the animals that breathe easier now. She touches the scarf in her pocket and finds her mother there. I want to stay, she says. Her voice shakes. It holds. Here I am not nothing. Jacob's mouth goes thin. You always were trouble. Lorna's face pinches like a door hinge. They climb back to the wagon. The wheels grind out of the yard, throwing dust and little else. Harlan watches them go. You don't owe them a life, he says. Elsie nods and begins her evening chores. The storm comes mean and crooked, dragged by the kind of wind that remembers old griefs. A knot of young men, drunk on spite, sways at the fence line with torches. Hey, Pike, one calls. Still hiding with your cow? Another tosses flame into the haystack. It leaps like it was waiting. Harlan grabs his rifle. Off my land, he roars. Thunder answers. Elsie runs past him with a bucket, bare feet slapping mud. Stay back, he orders. She does not. She soaks a blanket and beats at the fire. Sparks sting her arms. Smoke claws her throat. The dog circles and barks. A beam groans overhead. It comes down fast. Harlan shoves her. She shoves him harder. The timber clips her shoulder and drives her to her knees. He drops the rifle and lifts the beam enough for her to crawl. Horses, she coughs. He understands. He drives the herd out 2 by 2 while she drenches hot spots with what water remains. Rain arrives like a verdict. The torches gutter. The boys scatter. The yard steams. Harlan finds Elsie against the stall wall, eyes closed, lips blue at the edges. He gathers her up like a child and carries her into the kitchen. The dog follows, panting and proud. Morning is pale and quiet. Bandage on shoulder. Salve on burns. Coffee on the stove. You saved this place, he says. You saved me. Her smile is small and fierce. I came to clean stalls, she says. Looks like I did more than that. By afternoon, the fence line stands again, posts straight as soldiers. Harlan moves slower than usual, as if each nail is a thank you. Elsie's arm is in a sling. She insists on sweeping anyway. He takes the broom away. Sit, he says. Boss's orders. She sits, smiling, and watches him fumble the stew. It tastes like smoke and relief. Word travels. The men who started the fire brag at first, then hush when the sheriff asks questions. Neighbors ride past the gate and pretend they are only looking at clouds. Red Haven stares with new eyes. Some are ashamed. Some are angry that shame is required. Harlan walks into town and pays for lumber with a stack of coins. He leaves a notice on the board. Reward for names of the arson riders. No one speaks that day, but the next morning 2 names appear in shaky pencil. By the 3rd day there are 4. When Elsie is strong enough to ride, Harlan saddles Rusty and a gentle mare named Clover. Slow, he says. They circle the pasture in a gold evening. I thought I was done with people, he admits. Then you showed up, and the place started breathing again. I only wanted to be useful, she says. You were brave, he answers. Brave is rarer. He reins in at the gate, the same one where she once stood afraid. You can stay as long as you want, he says. Or longer. The last light finds her face. For the first time in years, she lets herself hope in daylight. The next week begins with stares. Elsie steps into Red Haven for flour and lamp oil. Conversations pause, then restart in low tones. 2 boys whisper, "Barn girl," and run. The blacksmith nods once, respectful. At the mercantile, Mrs. Wren wraps sugar and watches Elsie count coins with careful fingers. You don't owe them their talk, Mrs. Wren says. I know, Elsie answers, though the words still sting. Outside, Jacob blocks her path. Lorna lingers behind him, lips tight. You've made a fool of us, Jacob says. Folks say you're leeching off Pike. Elsie holds the paper sack close. I work. You'll come home now, he announces. We're done with this nonsense. Harlan's boots sound on the plank walk. He doesn't raise his voice. She's not a parcel to fetch. Jacob steps in, chin high. You think you're better than us? No, Harlan says. I think she is better than the lies you told. Lorna scoffs. Oh, the noble rancher. Elsie shakes her head. No one needs to fight. I'm making my choice. She walks between them, steady as a freight wagon. Harlan falls in beside her. The marshal across the street lowers his hat in quiet approval. That night, the yard feels different, like the sky itself has turned an ear toward Pike Ranch. Harlan hauls a new water barrel. Elsie lights the lanterns one by one. Rusty noses her pocket for a carrot and gets one. Tomorrow's the fall market, Harlan says, wiping his hands. Lots of eyes. Lots of words. We can't stop the words, she says, but we can give them something else to say. He studies her. You're not afraid? I'm tired of being afraid, she answers. Fear doesn't muck stalls. He laughs quietly. The sound settles in the rafters like a bird willing to nest again. Before bed, he carries a crate to the kitchen table. Inside, a new work apron, thick canvas, stitched with care. Not store-bought. I can't sew straight, he mutters. But I tried. Elsie runs a thumb over the clumsy seams, eyes bright. It's perfect. Wear it tomorrow, he says. Let Red Haven see who keeps this place standing. She nods. The dog thumps his tail. The lamplight makes a small, brave country in the middle of the dark. Red Haven Square smells of cinnamon, dust, and horse. Banners snap. Fiddles scrape a bright line in the air. Children chase each other between churns of butter and racks of ribbon. Elsie and Harlan tie their horses at the post by the well. Conversations thin as they cross the open. It feels like stepping onto a creek that might be ice. Mrs. Wren waves them over to her pie stand. 2 slices for the heroes of last week's fire, she says, daring anyone to object. Harlan pays anyway. Save the charity for Jacob, he says. They eat on a bench. Butterflakes fall on Elsie's new apron. A pair of ranch hands stop and nod. That fence you rebuilt is a sight, one says to Harlan. straight as a sermon. She drove the first post, Harlan replies, tipping his head toward Elsie. The hands glance at her, surprised, then respectful. Across the square, Jacob and Lorna whisper to a cluster of neighbors. Lorna points, and the cluster looks, but the heat has leaked out of the gossip. It's hard to jeer at a girl who carries herself like a worker, not a scandal. A shout goes up. The marshal hauls 2 young men to the jail wagon, soot-black scars still visible on their coats. The arson boys. The crowd murmurs. Someone says, "About time." Someone else says, "Serves 'em right." Harlan watches their faces. Something unclenches in his chest. "People change slow," he says. "Rocks soften under rain," Elsie answers, hearing her mother in the words. The fiddles switch to a waltz. Couples step out. Elsie starts to rise, then sits again, shrinking into old habits. Harlan stands and holds out a hand. "I don't dance," she whispers. "Me neither," he says. "Let's prove we can both learn." They circle awkwardly, counting under their breath, bumping a barrel, then laughing. The laughter holds no cruelty. It opens a lane through the square where the 2 of them fit, if only for the length of a song. When the music ends, the platform at the far side creaks. The mayor clears his throat to announce the ribbon prizes and the livestock winners. Harlan's jaw sets. He looks at Elsie, then at the boards under the mayor's boots, then at the whole town. Harlan steps toward the platform. Elsie's breath shortens. "You don't have to," she says. "I do," he answers, and climbs the steps. The square turns its head, one body made of many eyes. He removes his hat and holds it against his chest. "I won't take long," he begins. The mayor steps back, uncertain. "You all know me," Harlan says. "You know my temper, my mistakes. You know what the fire took from me years ago. When this girl showed up, I figured it was a joke. Jacob's kind of joke. I let her try a day because I assumed she'd quit." He finds Elsie in the crowd. She stands stock still, apron bright as a banner. "She didn't quit," he says. "She worked. She made the place breathe again. When some of your sons tried to burn me out, she dragged water through smoke and saved the stock. She saved me." A murmur runs like wind through wheat. Harlan's voice steadies. Folks called her names when they didn't know her. They'll have to find new words now. He reaches into his pocket and takes out a small gold band, plain, old, polished by nerve. "Elsie Moore," he says, clear enough for the far fence to hear. "I don't want you as my hired hand. I want you as my wife." Silence is a bell. Elsie's heart hammers inside it. She doesn't move at first. Not from shame. From the weight of finally being seen. Jacob blurts, "You can't." The marshal coughs. "He can." Lorna's mouth opens and closes with no sound. Mrs. Wren starts clapping, once, twice, then steady, stubborn. The blacksmith joins. A child laughs because the sound is bigger than the square. Harlan stays very still, hand extended, ring glinting like a small sunrise. Elsie steps forward. Every step is a year she spent believing she was less. She climbs to the platform. Her hands shake. She doesn't hide them. "I came because of a bad joke," she says, voice soft but carrying. "I stayed because work is honest and kindness is real. I won't apologize for either." She looks at Jacob and Lorna. "You sent me to be laughed at. I learned how to stand." Then she turns to Harlan. "Yes," she says. "I'll marry you." The crowd exhales like a tired horse. Applause lifts and breaks and lifts again. The mayor wipes his eyes and fumbles for a speech he never wrote. The fiddler, helpless before a moment bigger than music, plays anyway. They ride out at dusk with flour and nails lashed behind the saddle. The sky goes copper, then plum. Coyotes start up far off. At the ranch gate, Harlan dismounts and opens it wide. He doesn't rush her through. He stands there, one hand on the post, the other in hers. "This is yours as much as mine," he says. She touches the carved letters, Pike Ranch, then the fresh scrubbed board she saved from flame. "We'll make it better than we found it," she answers. They walk the yard in the blue hour, checking latches, refilling troughs, greeting the horses by name. Rusty noses their pockets for the last carrot and gets half from each. The dog settles on the stoop, certain of his place. In the kitchen, Elsie hangs the apron by the door. Harlan sets the ring box beside the lamp. He hesitates, then says what he should have said long ago. "You're not a burden." "I know," she says, and because she can now, she adds, "but it helps to hear it." Rain begins, soft and clean, tapping the roof like gentle knuckles. The house listens. The land listens. The past loosens its fist. In Red Haven, folks still talk. They always will. But the sharp edges of their words dull under use. New stories take root. How the girl who was meant to be a joke became the kind of truth a town has to admit. At first light, Harlan and Elsie step outside with coffee mugs and stand shoulder to shoulder, watching the valley show its bones to the day. "Back to work," she says, smiling. "Back to work," he agrees. He kisses her knuckles, just once, quick as a promise. The gate swings, the windmill turns, the fences hold. And if anyone asks what changed at Pike Ranch, the answer is simple and impossible at once. They stopped laughing long enough to see. Sometimes the cruelest jokes lead us to the kindest hearts. Elsie's story reminds us that real worth isn't measured by size, looks, or gossip. It's proven by the courage to keep showing up, even when the world laughs. If this story stayed with you, tell me what part spoke to your heart and where you're watching from. I love knowing who's out there under the same sky, listening to these Wild West nights. Leave me a comment, and if you'd like to ride along for more stories like this one, hit subscribe and keep the fire burning with us.